guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'm going to be starting a new segment on my channel and it is high-end versus affordable. But today I'm going to be starting with the NARS Creamy Concealer versus the Maybelline Fit Me Concealer. I've probably been using the NARS concealer for almost like a year now. It's been a really long time and I've really liked it for highlighting. So I always use it through the center of my face, blend it in with a beauty blender, and I really liked how it went. But I was watching a video about 2 weeks ago and the girl was talking about the Maybelline Fit Me Concealer and she was saying she thinks it's a better version of this and it's like so much cheaper. So I tried really hard to get hold of it. I went to quite a few drugstores and it was sold out pretty much everywhere, but I finally managed to get my hand on it. And this is the number 15 Fair, which I think is the lightest, and then the NARS one I'm using is Vanilla, which is the second lightest. So they're quite similar in colour, I believe. So basically with this segment, I want to be comparing the high end to the drugstore just to see which one comes out better. Is the high end better and is it worth the money, or are the drugstores doing just as good products and charging us way less? So this is the first one I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to be applying it, I'm going to be talking about the ingredients, the textures, the longevity, all that kind of stuff, packaging, price, really doing a thorough comparison and giving you guys my honest opinion on which one I think is the better concealer. So first of all, let's start talking about some comparisons. Packaging wise, this is how they both come. So the Maybelline Fit Me Concealer, it comes like this. It doesn't come in a box. It has a little bit of sticky tape which is over the seal, so then you know if it's been opened or not in the store. So that's how the Maybelline one comes. The NARS Creamy Concealer comes in a box, the typical NARS black and white packaging, and the actual concealer comes like this. Now size wise, the Maybelline Fit Me Concealer that's so hard to read, this is like the smallest writing in the whole world. It's 6.8mm and the NARS Creamy Concealer is 6mm. So the Maybelline has 0.8 of a mil more in the packaging. Price wise, I picked up the NARS concealer from Mecca Maxima and I paid $43 for it. The Maybelline Fit Me Concealer, I picked it up from my local drugstore and I paid $15 for it. This is in Australian dollars, so the NARS Creamy Concealer is 3 times the price of the Maybelline. Okay, so I did have a little look at the ingredients list for both the concealers. The NARS Creamy Concealer has 28 ingredients, 2 of them which are plant-based, and the Maybelline Concealer has 21 ingredients, 1 of them which is plant-based. So both of them, the ingredients are pretty safe. There's nothing too nasty in there. Apart from the Maybelline Concealer does have 2 parabens in it, methylparaben and butylparaben. Now parabens are preservatives. They're put into cosmetics to make them last longer so bacteria doesn't grow inside the bottle. Parabens are a little bit controversial. There's some case studies out there which say that parabens can be carcinogenic, which means that they can alter the cells of the body, which is generally what causes cancer. But there's also studies that show that for that to happen, the parabens have to be in a really high concentration, and because the parabens are in the lower third of the ingredients list, the highest in the ingredients list is the most concentrated, and then the lower down the less. So if it's down the lower third of the ingredients list, it means that it's there in really small amounts, which means generally it's harmless. But if you're sensitive to parabens or you don't like the idea of using parabens, obviously the Maybelline one's not for you. But if that kind of thing doesn't bother you, then they're both pretty good apart from that. Now most of the ingredients in them are water-based, so nice and hydrating. There's silicone-based ingredients in there which are good for smoothing and hydrating, plumping, waterproofing, so it makes the concealer kind of last and stay waterproof on the skin. It means it doesn't melt off. Smoothing, so good for kind of fine lines, not settling into lines, and also hydrating. So they've both got glycerin in it, which is a beautiful hydrating ingredient, holds all the water from the skin in the surface, so it plumps and hydrates. And yeah, they both seem to sound like they do very similar things. The ingredients list is quite different. They've only got a couple ingredients that are the same, but they both use similar kind of ingredients to create the same effect. Alright, so now we're going to talk about application method. So basically how I'm going to test these is I'm going to do one on one under eye and the other on the other under eye. I'm going to blend them both in with a beauty blender. I'm going to set them both with my Laura Mercier translucent setting powder, treating them both the exact same way, and then over the day I'm going to see how it wears, how it looks, how it blends, if it creases, all that kind of stuff, just so we can really nut down which is the better concealer. Okay, so let's do a swatch of both of them first of all. So the texture of the NARS one I find is quite thick and creamy. That's it there, if you can see it. This one I find is a lot more watery and a lot more thin. And that's it just above. So very, very similar colour. If anything, the NARS one is slightly darker, but I'm not going to be comparing colours today. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the formula. So far, the Maybelline one is just a little bit thinner, a little bit more watery, whereas the NARS one's a little bit thicker and creamier. So I'm going to be doing the Maybelline on this side, and I'm going to be doing the NARS one on this side. So like I said, quite watery, not watery, but quite thin, which I quite like. I don't like a super heavy concealer under the eyes because I find the heavier it is, the more it kind of clings to lines. So this is quite nice. I'm going to be blending it in with my Beauty Blender. So I'm just going to blend that in. So pretty good coverage, really, really nice and brightening. You can see the massive bright triangle under my eye, which is beautiful. I wouldn't say it's full coverage, like I still feel I can see a little bit of dark just slightly on my under eyes, but it feels very, very light wearing, nice and comfortable, blended super easily. Yeah, the texture is definitely so much thicker. You can really feel it. So that side is definitely not quite as bright. That one, the Maybelline, is definitely a lot brighter, but that could be the colour. I feel like this one feels heavier. It's a creamier, heavier formula, and I'm aware of it. This one feels very light and kind of hydrating, whereas that one feels a lot more kind of heavier and almost more makeup-y. I'm just going to look a little bit closer up. Neither one is kind of settling in lines any more than the other. If anything, the NARS one, I can just feel it a little bit more. It's a little bit more heavier. And they're both, like, my under eyes crease, like, immediately. And, yeah, they're both creasing about the same. Good, I'm just going to reblend. And then I'm going to set them both with my Laura Mercier Translucent Setting Powder. I'm not going to bake, I'm just going to set right on the under eye, just where it creases really, really quickly. Yeah, so far they are both looking incredibly similar. It's just this one's a little tiny bit brighter. So right now it is 10:44. So yeah, we'll be back in about an hour or so after I've done the rest of the makeup, and we'll see how it's looking. Okay, so it is 1:10, so like 2.5 hours since I applied these concealers. So I've gone on and finished the rest of my makeup, and it took a really, really long time, which is why it's been 2.5 hours. But it's all done, and I'm here for my first longevity check of these concealers. They are both looking absolutely perfect. Nothing has changed, nothing has moved. If anything, this side is just looking a little bit heavier. Just round about here. Like I said in the first test, it is a thicker formula, and I'm kind of seeing that on my skin. This one is almost invisible, whereas this one, I can just see it sitting a little bit heavy just right here. Apart from that, they're both looking fantastic. They haven't creased at all, which is fantastic. So far, so good. So I'm going to check in again later on tonight just before I take my makeup off. Give them a really good longevity check. Leave them on for another good few hours. See how they're going. And then we can do a final review and decide which of these concealers is better. So I'll see you soon. Okay, so we're back, and it is 4:40 in the afternoon, so it is just under 6 hours since I put the concealer in place. So this side was the NARS Creamy Concealer, this side was the Maybelline Fit Me Concealer. So let's have a look, see how they're both looking. Okay, they're both still looking really, really, really good. Neither of them have separated. Neither of them have moved or creased or anything. Now I did set them with the Laura Mercier translucent setting powder, but I didn't bake, I just set them in place. So that obviously helps, but I set them both the exact same way, so it doesn't, you know, it shouldn't change the comparison test. Now the only thing I will say is the NARS one is definitely looking more visible on the skin. It is a thicker formula, like I said when I was testing it, but it's definitely more visible on the skin. My under eyes are looking a little bit more crepey. It's looking a little bit heavier than I usually like, especially directly on the under eyes. Now the Maybelline one is very, very natural. It's almost invisible. So I'm going to grade these with points. I'm going to do categories. Each category, the winner is going to get a point. Whoever gets the most points wins. That's basically how this is going to work. Okay, so first of all, let's go with price point. NARS Creamy Concealer, 6ml, $43. Maybelline is 6.8ml, $15, so a third of the price of the NARS one. So Maybelline definitely wins. Okay, ingredients. So like I said, the NARS one has 28 ingredients, the Maybelline has 21 ingredients. The NARS ingredients are all very, very clean. The Maybelline is all clean apart from it has parabens in it, which are a controversial preservative. So I'm going to be super picky here, but I'm going to give NARS the point just because the ingredients are a little bit more cleaner, paraben free. So NARS is going to get the point for that one. Packaging. So NARS came in a black box, whereas Maybelline didn't. The packaging is just a little bit more luxurious on the NARS. It's got a beautiful like velvet matte handle. The packaging is just really slick. The Maybelline one is pretty basic. It's similar. It's just this one is just, you know, it's got a shiny handle rather than the matte velvet. It's a lot more kind of basic. It doesn't come in a box. The applicators are both pretty much exactly the same. So the doe foots are slightly different, as in the NARS doe foot, which is this one, is just a little bit bigger than the Maybelline one. I don't really think it affected the application really. I think they both kind of applied the same way. I didn't really notice a difference when applying it. I don't really think that affects it. So for packaging, I'm going to give NARS the point just because it's a little bit more luxurious. It comes in a box. Just little things like that just make it a little bit more worth the money that it is. Okay, texture-wise, the NARS Creamy Concealer was definitely thicker. The texture was creamier, a much thicker formula, whereas the Maybelline one was a lot kind of thinner, a lot more fluid. For me, I definitely think Maybelline has the nicer texture. It's much more soft, it blends into the skin, it goes a lot more kind of natural on the face than the NARS one. The NARS one is a lot more kind of thicker and heavier and more full coverage. Now this one, it was a lot more visible on the skin, as in you can see it in the pores, you can see it in the fine lines. This one doesn't really have that. It's a lot more silicone-y, I guess. It kind of sits over the surface and smooths everything out, whereas that one, I don't feel like it does the same thing. So for texture, for me, Maybelline is definitely the winner. I just think the texture's a little bit smoother and a little bit nicer. Coverage-wise, I believe the NARS Creamy Concealer would definitely cover a lot better than the Maybelline. It's a thicker formula. It seems to be more pigmented, it seems to be a little bit heavier. I feel for blemishes, I would 100% choose the NARS one over the Maybelline. A thicker formula is definitely more effective for coverage, whereas this one is much nicer kind of on the under eyes. So for coverage, the point is definitely going to go to NARS. Now, wearability, by which I mean how it's worn on the skin over time, I'm definitely going to give the point to Maybelline here. This one, like I said, I could see in the mirror, it's just sitting on the surface slightly, whereas the Maybelline one looks exactly how I applied it. It's very smooth, very light. I can't really see it. So we have a draw. We have 3 points to NARS, 3 points to Maybelline. But overall, I am going to give the win to Maybelline purely because they are coming out with the same amount of points, but Maybelline is $15, whereas NARS is $43. So there we go. So Maybelline's the winner. Woo! So anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you've got any questions or comments or anything, please leave me a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. If you did like my video, please give me a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. And I really hope to see you on the next video. Have a wonderful day and I'll see you really, really soon. Bye!